All right, so there is a stack, and if you don't like any of these, you can absolutely find something shiny, something metallic, but this just works really, really well for this example. But there are a stack of bows up here that you can use. If they're smaller ones, you can do multiple transfers on the page to kind of fill your page if it's a smaller bow. But let's say that I choose this one. I'm going to use my China marker on the back to complete a transfer first. And the transfer might take a little while. You want to give yourself a second to make sure that you transfer all the pieces of this because, again, this isn't really a drawing exercise. It's a value exercise and working in reverse in your brain and trying to make form. So I don't want to like throw too many things at you because if I had you draw these bows out, probably a lot of people would be like, well, I can't get all these sections. And that's okay. That can be its own thing. For the next project that we do, we are going to enlarge with a grid, and that might blow a few people's brains, but that's okay. All right, I think I have this covered pretty well. We shall see. And I'm going to center this. And again, if you're doing some of the smaller bows, you might want to do 3 or 4 that are kind of spaced around the page and kind of run off the page. You could choose 2 or 3 different ones and combine them on the page if you wanted to. And when you go to transfer, you're just trying to transfer all the loops of the bows. Can you guys see this? There's lots of little spaces I'm transferring. I'm not transferring every light and dark, but I'm trying to get every loop of the bow in there. So even the transfer for this can be kind of hard. So just take your time so that you don't miss any chunks, because basically what you're doing on this is working in small cones or working in small cylinders. That's why I choose bows, because they're basically broken down into cylinders and cones, and I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. All right, so I've transferred that. Let's hope I got enough on the background, and I did, okay? I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
All right, so it's going to be a little bit light, and you can go back in and darken some of those lines if you need to, just a bit. But when I start to match this value, I'm going to lay this bow next to me. It's hard to fit into the whole screen here, but I'm going to lay this next to me. And instead of thinking about where I want to shade in my dark, I'm going to pick the lightest light with each one, and I'm going to start thinking about where I want to shade in my light. But since this is more of it's kind of an exercise. It's not like it's a super long, crazy drawing. But I want to still have my mark nice and even, okay? And I can see on that middle one that this has a large chunk of light right here, okay? And then there's a little bit of gray, and then another large chunk of light. So you are looking for your lighter chunks and working in reverse rather than looking for your darker sections, okay? And when it fades into shadow, just stop. Don't put hardly anything there. So if I'm at this point on this bow, see that dark line in the middle of that? I don't want to place anything on my bow, and I'll hold both of these up on the screen so you can see them a little better. But now it's lighter again. So I'm going to work section by section, kind of pretending they're each their own little And this gets a little frustrating because you are trying to match. It is an exercise. It's not like the most fun drawing in the world. It's to train you to try to look for the lights and darks, which I know can be frustrating, but it works. Okay, so I'm going to hold this up to the camera and you can see, do you see that center section? You guys see what I'm drawing? That center section, this one right here, light and then dark again and then light again, okay? So if I continue to add to this, you can see that it looks, close up, it looks rough, like just lines. Do you guys see that? But as you back up, that light and dark next to each other starts to make a form. Okay? So if you're up close to it, that's what you see. It's textured. When you get away from it, you start to see this form. Do you guys see that? Watch one more time. Really look at that. Up close, texture. As you move away, that looks like a really realistic bow on the page because you're really trying to compare that light and dark. So I'm going to do one more section on here. I know inside this bow, it's a little bit lighter inside there. And then here's my next section. Again, a little bit, I'm pressing a little bit lighter because it's dark. And then now I get to the edge of that bow, and I'll hold this up for you again when I get done. And I've got those light streaks. So this is a great exercise, and up close you see this mark making, but if you try to catch those lights and darks, when you get away from it, it's going to create a form, okay? So again, this is not the most exciting drawing you'll do, but it's a great exercise in training your drawing brain. So that's what I have so far. You guys see that? And I'll hang that on the board. But it's going to look rough until you get it all in there. And then you can keep comparing it. And try not to outline. Do you guys see how each one of these are not outlined? They're trying to catch the value instead of outlining it all in white. Okay. So yeah,